I stood before a room full of family, friends, and the woman who had vowed to love me forever, raising a glass as my throat burned with a cocktail of whiskey and betrayal. To my beautiful wife, I began, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask, the one who deserves an award for the best performance in a double life. The room fell silent. Glasses hovered mid-air, and my wife's face drained of color as if the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. She opened her mouth to protest, but the words caught in her throat. I wasn't done yet. For 10 years, Emily had been the center of my universe. We met at a bookshop, bonding over our mutual love for Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. She had this way of making the world feel smaller, more intimate, like it was just us against everything. We got married 2 years later, and life, for the most part, had been good. Or so I thought. Our anniversary party was meant to be a celebration of that life we'd built together, a decade of love, trust, and companionship. The venue was perfect, an elegant ballroom adorned with cascading white orchids, twinkling fairy lights, and the faint hum of a live string quartet. It was the kind of evening where you couldn't help but feel like you were living a scene from a movie. But even in the most idyllic scenes, shadows lurk. I'd started noticing things a few months earlier, late nights at work that didn't add up, the faint scent of cologne on her clothes that wasn't mine, and the way she'd begun guarding her phone like it contained state secrets. At first, I dismissed it. We were busy people, we had demanding jobs. But doubt has a way of gnawing at you, hollowing you out until there's nothing left but questions you're too afraid to ask. Then came the text message. It was late, and Emily was asleep beside me, her phone buzzing softly on the nightstand. I wasn't proud of it, but I reached for it. The screen lit up, and there it was. I can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? The sender was saved as work contact. A poor disguise. My hands shook as I scrolled up, each message more damning than the last. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a full-blown affair. Candlelit dinners. Weekend getaways. Whispered promises that had no place in our marriage. I spent the next few weeks in a haze, pretending everything was fine while gathering evidence. I became a detective in my own life, piecing together the fragments of her betrayal. And when I had all the proof I needed, hotel receipts, photos, even a voicemail, I knew I had to confront her. But not yet. Not until I could hit her where it would hurt the most. The day of our 10th anniversary arrived with a cruel irony. Friends and family flooded the ballroom, their faces bright with joy, unaware of the storm brewing beneath my polished exterior. Emily was radiant in her emerald green dress, her laugh echoing through the room as she greeted our guests. She was good at this, playing the role of the perfect wife. But I'd grown accustomed to watching her closely over the last few weeks, and I could see the cracks. The way she avoided eye contact with me for too long. The nervous way she smoothed the fabric of her dress when she thought no one was looking. Did she know I knew? Or was she simply running from her own guilt? The night was a carefully choreographed performance. Speeches from friends. A slideshow of photos chronicling our relationship, from our first date to our wedding day. Toasts made in our honor, each one a dagger to my heart. Emily's parents, proud and oblivious, beamed at their daughter, raising their glasses to the life she had built with me. I waited for my moment. The string quartet transitioned into a soft waltz, and Emily's father tapped his glass for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice booming with the authority of a man who'd spent decades running boardrooms. It's not every day you get to celebrate a love as strong and enduring as this one. My daughter and her husband are an inspiration to us all. Applause erupted, and Emily turned to me, her eyes glistening. I couldn't tell if it was genuine emotion or the guilt eating away at her. Either way, it didn't matter. And now, he continued, I'd like to invite Daniel to say a few words. This was it. My moment. I rose from my seat, taking a slow, deliberate sip of whiskey to steady my nerves. The room fell quiet as I walked to the center, every eye on me. I could feel Emily's gaze burning into my back. I cleared my throat, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate this milestone in our lives, I began, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. 10 years is no small feat, and I want to start by thanking my wife, Emily, for being the amazing woman she is. Emily smiled, a fragile thing that didn't quite reach her eyes. But tonight, I continued, I want to talk about something else. About truth. About what it means to truly know someone. A murmur rippled through the room, confusion spreading like wildfire. Emily's smile faltered. For 10 years, I believed I knew everything about Emily. I believed in her, in us. I believed in the vows we made to each other. I paused, letting the tension build. The air in the room grew heavy. But sometimes, belief isn't enough. Sometimes, the truth has a way of revealing itself in ways you can't ignore. Daniel, Emily said, her voice trembling, what are you doing? I ignored her, locking eyes with her father instead. Mr. Reynolds, you once told me I was the luckiest man alive to marry your daughter. And for a long time, I believed you. But tonight, I've come to realize that luck is a double-edged sword. Emily's mother gasped, clutching her husband's arm. The murmurs grew louder, but I silenced them with a raised hand. I want to share a toast, I said, lifting my glass high. To Emily. To the woman who managed to live 2 lives without missing a beat. To the woman who taught me the true meaning of betrayal. Emily shot to her feet, her face pale. Stop it! She screamed, her voice breaking. This isn't the time. Not the time? I said, my voice rising. You're right. The time was 3 months ago, Emily, when I found out about him. I turned to the crowd, holding up my phone. Would anyone like to see the evidence? Texts? Photos? Receipts? Maybe you'd like to hear the voicemail she accidentally sent me after her little getaway? The room erupted into chaos. Emily's parents looked at her, horrified. Friends whispered in hushed tones. Emily froze, tears streaming down her face. I trusted you, I said, my voice breaking, no longer for the crowd but for her. I loved you. And this is how you repay me? For a moment, the room blurred around me, the weight of my words crashing down. Emily's sobs cut through the noise, but I felt no sympathy. Not yet. The stage was set. The truth was out. But this was only the beginning. The silence after my speech was deafening, broken only by the sharp clink of a glass shattering in someone's hand. Emily's mother had turned pale, clutching her pearls as if they were the only thing tethering her to reality. Her father stood frozen, his jaw clenched, his expression somewhere between rage and disbelief. Emily stared at me, her face streaked with tears, her lips trembling as if trying to form words that wouldn't come. But I wasn't about to give her a chance to defend herself, not yet. Who? Her father barked, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a whip. Emily flinched, shaking her head. Dad, please. It's not what it seems. Not what it seems. I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Should I play the voicemail, Emily? You know, the one where your work contact tells you how much he misses the way you taste? Gasps rippled through the room, followed by the awkward shuffle of chairs as some guests began edging toward the exits, unwilling to stay but too fascinated to leave just yet. Emily's mother collapsed into her seat, her hand covering her mouth. Her father turned to her, his voice trembling with fury. Is it true? Please, let's not do this here, Emily begged, her voice cracking. Oh, we're doing this here, I said, stepping forward. My blood was boiling now, the dam of my restraint broken. I've spent months swallowing this, pretending everything was fine while you laughed behind my back. Do you even realize what you've done? What you've destroyed? Emily's tears fell harder, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. She reached out toward me, but I stepped back, shaking my head. Don't. Don't you dare touch me. The room was a swirling mess of whispers, side eyes, and awkward coughs. Some of our friends tried to console Emily's parents, while others hovered by the bar, pretending to need another drink but clearly staying for the show. I turned to the crowd, my voice rising. For those of you who think I'm being cruel, let me make one thing clear: she didn't just betray me. She betrayed us. The life we built together. The promises we made. And if any of you knew about this and said nothing, I scanned their faces, daring someone to speak up. Then you're no better than she is. Emily crumpled into her chair, sobbing openly now. I wanted to feel something: pity, regret, maybe even relief, but all I felt was the cold satisfaction of knowing she could no longer hide. Her father leaned over her, his voice low but sharp. "Who is it, Emily? Tell me his name." She shook her head, her hands trembling. "It doesn't matter," she whispered. "It matters to me," he roared, slamming a fist on the table so hard the plates rattled. That's when I decided to drop the final bombshell. I reached into my pocket, pulling out the stack of photos I'd printed. Surveillance shots of Emily with him hand in hand, laughing, kissing. I tossed them onto the table in front of her parents, watching as their faces contorted with anger and heartbreak. "This is who," I said coldly, my finger pointing to the man in the photos. "Your daughter's work contact. His name's Ryan, by the way. In case anyone wants to know." Emily's mother let out a strangled cry, burying her face in her hands. Her father's face turned an alarming shade of red as he stood, fists clenched. "Get up," he said to Emily, his voice deadly calm. "Dad, Get up." She obeyed, trembling under the weight of his fury. "You're coming with me," he said. "Now." He shot me a look, his eyes filled with shame and a flicker of gratitude. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't know I didn't raise her to be this." Emily tried to protest, but her father silenced her with a glare. He grabbed her arm and led her toward the exit, her mother trailing behind, still sobbing. As the doors closed behind them, the room was left in an uneasy quiet. The guests shuffled awkwardly, unsure of what to do or say. I stood there, alone in the center of it all, the weight of the moment finally pressing down on me. My chest ached, not with regret, but with the emptiness that followed. I had exposed the truth, but it hadn't brought the closure I'd hoped for. Instead, it had left a gaping void where my marriage used to be. 2 days later, I was packing up Emily's belongings when I found it, an envelope tucked into the back of her closet. It wasn't hidden exactly, but it wasn't meant to be found either. Inside were handwritten letters not to Ryan, but to me. Letters she'd never sent. "Dear Daniel," one began. "I know I'm losing you, and I don't know how to stop it. You've been distant, and I've been desperate to feel something again, even if it's the wrong thing. I don't know how we got here, but I miss you. I miss us." I read through all of them, each one a gut punch in its own way. They weren't excuses, they were confessions. She'd been lost, broken in ways I hadn't noticed. And maybe I'd been broken too caught up in my own world to see the cracks forming in hers. The letters haunted me for days, forcing me to confront the uncomfortable truth: Emily's betrayal didn't exist in a vacuum. I couldn't ignore the patterns they revealed: the late nights I'd spent at the office, the conversations we'd avoided, the affection that had dwindled between us long before Ryan entered the picture. But even as I wrestled with those revelations, I couldn't let go of my anger. She'd chosen to deal with our problems by destroying what we had. No letter could erase the pain or undo the humiliation I'd endured. Then, a week after the anniversary party, I received an email that reignited the fire inside me. It was from Ryan. Subject: "We need to talk." The message was short, almost smug. "I know you're hurting, but you don't know the full story. Meet me at 6 p.m. at the coffee shop on 8th Street if you want the truth." My first instinct was to delete it. What truth could Ryan possibly offer me that I didn't already know? But curiosity and anger are dangerous companions, and by 5:45 p.m. I was sitting at a corner table in the dimly lit CAF, nursing a black coffee that tasted as bitter as I felt. Ryan arrived 10 minutes late, dressed in a crisp suit that reeked of arrogance. He spotted me immediately and walked over with the confidence of a man who thought he had nothing to lose. "Daniel," he said, sitting across from me without waiting for an invitation. I didn't respond, my jaw clenched as I studied the man who had upended my life. He was younger than me by at least a decade, with the kind of polished charm that probably made him irresistible to someone looking for an escape. "Why the hell are you here?" I asked coldly. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Look, I'm not here to fight or gloat. I just think you deserve to know the truth about Emily." "You mean the truth that she's been screwing you behind my back for months?" "I think I've got that covered." "That's not what I mean." He hesitated, his confidence wavering for the first time. "She ended things with me weeks ago. Before your anniversary." My heart skipped a beat, but I refused to let him see it. "Why should I believe you?" "Because it's the truth. She broke it off, said she wanted to work on her marriage. Said she still loved you." I laughed bitterly. "And yet, she conveniently forgot to mention that while we were celebrating 10 years of lies." "I'm not saying she's innocent," Ryan said, his voice softer now. "I'm just saying. She's not who you think she is. She's not a monster." His words dug into me, unwanted and unwelcome. I wanted to dismiss him, to hold on to the version of Emily I'd built in my mind, the cold-hearted villain who had shattered my life. But a seed of doubt had been planted, and I hated him for it. Before I could respond, Ryan leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. "If you want the full truth, talk to her. Not me." Horror. That night, I sat in the living room of the home we once shared, waiting for Emily. She'd been staying with her parents since the party, and I'd asked her to come over under the guise of finalizing our separation. When she arrived, she looked smaller somehow, her shoulders hunched, her face pale and drawn. She sat on the edge of the couch, clutching her bag like it was a lifeline. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want the truth," I said, my tone hard but steady. "No lies, no excuses. Just the truth." She swallowed hard, tears already welling in her eyes. "You already know the truth." "No," I said firmly. "I know pieces of it. I want all of it." For a long moment, she said nothing, her hands trembling as she twisted her wedding ring, a habit I hadn't seen in months. Finally, she met my gaze, her voice breaking as she spoke. "I was lonely, Daniel," she said. "I know that's not an excuse, but it's the truth. I felt invisible, like I didn't matter anymore. And Ryan, he made me feel seen." Her words were like a knife to the gut, but I forced myself to stay silent, to let her speak. "But it wasn't real," she continued, her voice cracking. "It wasn't love. It was desperation. I ended it because I realized I didn't want him. I wanted you. I just didn't know how to fix what was broken between us." I stared at her, the weight of her confession pressing down on me like a tidal wave. I wanted to scream, to throw her words back in her face, but instead, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me since Ryan's email. "Why didn't you tell me?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Because I was scared. Scared you'd hate me. Scared it would be the final nail in the coffin. And maybe it was. I don't know. But I didn't want to lose you, Daniel. I still don't." Her vulnerability was disarming, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with, the woman I'd promised to stand by, for better or worse. But I couldn't ignore what she'd done. I couldn't ignore the pain she'd caused. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally, my voice raw. "I don't expect you to," she whispered. "But I needed you to know the truth." The silence between us stretched, thick and suffocating. Emily sat across from me, her face streaked with tears, her hands clutching the edge of the couch as though bracing for the final blow. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to cling to my anger, to the righteous fury that had kept me standing these last few weeks. But as I stared at her, I realized something unsettling. Hatred required more energy than I had left. "I think you should go," I said, my voice flat. She flinched but didn't argue. Rising slowly, she wiped at her face, then turned toward the door. But before she stepped out, she paused. "For what it's worth," she said softly, her voice trembling, "I'm sorry. For everything." I didn't respond. I couldn't. When the door closed behind her, the weight of everything crashed over me. The betrayal. The rage. The confusion. And beneath it all, the ache of something I wasn't ready to admit: grief. Grief for the life we'd built. For the woman I thought I knew. For the future that no longer existed. The next few weeks were a blur of packing and paperwork. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter, became a hollow shell, each room a graveyard of memories. I moved into a small apartment downtown, the emptiness a bitter reminder of how much had changed. Emily and I communicated only through our lawyers, her name popping up in emails and legal documents but never in conversation. I told myself this was what I wanted: to erase her, to move on. But moving on was easier said than done. Late at night, when the city had quieted and the walls closed in around me, I'd find myself replaying our last conversation. Her tears. Her apology. The pain in her voice when she said she didn't want to lose me. It would have been easier if she'd been a villain. If her betrayal had been born of malice instead of desperation. But the truth was messier than that, and it left me questioning everything, not just about her, but about myself. Had I failed her? Had I been so caught up in my own life that I'd missed the signs? Or was it simpler than that? Was love, in the end, just another illusion, doomed to shatter under the weight of reality? Months passed, and life moved forward, even when I felt stuck. The divorce was finalized quietly, no dramatic courtroom scenes or bitter fights. Just two people signing papers, their once shared life reduced to a series of legal agreements. Emily moved back to her hometown to be closer to her family. I heard through mutual friends that she was seeing a therapist, trying to work through her mistakes. It didn't bring me comfort, but it didn't bring me anger either. As for me, I threw myself into work, long hours at the office filling the void Emily had left behind. I told myself I was fine, that I didn't need anyone, that I was better off alone. But the truth was harder to face. One evening, I found myself walking along the Hudson, the city lights reflecting off the water in a kaleidoscope of colors. The air was cold, biting against my skin, but I welcomed it. It made me feel alive. I stopped at a bench overlooking the river, sitting down with a sigh. For the first time in months, I let myself think about what came next, not in terms of revenge or survival, but in terms of healing. I pulled my phone from my pocket, scrolling aimlessly until I landed on a photo from years ago. Emily and I, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, her smile bright and unguarded, my arm wrapped protectively around her waist. I stared at it for a long time before finally pressing delete. The past couldn't be undone, and the future was still unclear. But as I sat there, the cold wind whipping around me, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Betrayal changes you. It breaks you open, forces you to confront parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But in that breaking, there's an opportunity to rebuild, not as who you were, but as who you could become. Emily's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was a turning point, a painful but necessary step toward understanding what I wanted, what I needed, and who I could be without her. And as I walked away from the river that night, the city lights glowing behind me, I realized something else: forgiveness wasn't for her. It was for me. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to start again. If you were in my place, what would you have done?